They just had her follow me into the forest. The FBI and DOJ that's gang stalking me, they refuse to leave me alone. The court says that the United States government harassing me is not related, but of course it is. The court's going to do everything they can to protect Magistrate Cruz, who Biden promoted as judge while he sat on my case for 2 years. And then you have defense counsel talking about they don't know where half the records are, but then telling the counsel that they were blindsided by the damage awards. Okay, either you don't know where the records are or you were blindsided, or both. I mean, which is it? So this is what they continue to do. They continue to stalk me as soon as I leave my home, harass me. At home, they have the neighbors continuing to assault me with directed energy weapons and sonic cannons, banging and tapping on the wall all morning. When I got up, they immediately started assaulting me with directed energy weapons. The court refuses to do anything because, of course, Magistrate Cruz, whose law firm allowed fraudulent discovery into evidence, they're protecting him. But it's not really protecting him. They had this plotted and planned from the beginning. They're just harassing me because I discovered it, but they always had intentions to harass me. Here goes another person they're sending in the forest to stalk me, because they have to have people walk the exact same path that I just walked, following me, pursuing me. These are FBI and DOJ agents, of course, as you can see. So, I haven't been walking out on the trails for a while because I've been inside filing motions. The court yesterday denied all 14 of them. Basically asked defense counsel what they wanted, and then she was like, well, my elderly parents, who basically are in the military, coordinating with her to have me assaulted with directed energy weapons, and the information that I posted was already on the public domain, which I gathered it from the public domain, but she told the courts she wants it restricted and hidden. So the court put a 2-month restriction on the stuff that I file to protect defense. So every time that I come walking, they have someone immediately start following me. There goes the woman. She's up there. And then there he goes right there. So as soon as I came down, they immediately sent them over here to start stalking me. This goes on a daily basis. Every time I leave my home, they have someone following me and stalking me. The court is saying that they only want to focus on the civil rights violation, and any constitutional violations conducted by defendants, I have to file a new lawsuit. They're saying that it's not related. Of course it's related, because after you leave an employer, if the case is not settled, the retaliation can continue. And as it continues, they can start violating constitutional laws, which the court, the judges, he's a public defender, a federal public defender. He's saying that that's not the case. Of course, you and I know that it is, but this is what they've been coordinating with the chief judge and all the magistrates on the case. There's been 5 magistrates on the case so far, of course, because they're following a book, and the book has the word magistrates in there. So they were like, oh, okay, well, let's add 5 magistrates to her case. So that's what they've been doing, cycling in magistrates. They had 2 O'Hara's, Timothy P. O'Hara, who's the federal defender. He was just added. Now, supposedly, as a federal defender, you have 4 years to be a federal defender because you're appointed into that position. Well, they immediately moved him from that position, added him to my case because I had filed complaints against the FBI, the judges. with the FBI, the DOJ, regarding judicial misconduct. So they took someone from the federal defender judiciary, added him to my case to basically block all of my motions, and that's what he did yesterday. He was very condescending on the call. He was like, Latanya, do you understand rules? And, in order to do this, we can't have this call unless we do this. And if you're speaking to someone for the first time, that's not how you conduct a conversation. And I basically told him, I said, some of my advisors used to do that, to be very condescending. And I said, I would just ignore them. Like, basically, I'm ignoring you right now, because all he was trying to do was incite me on the call so can be recorded as public record. And then he kept saying to defense counsel, well, hold on a second. I want to ask Ms. Perkins. Ms. Perkins, do you have any other rules that you want to add to the case? And she was like, well, Your Honor, I'd like to add. And then he goes, okay, well, that's going to be rule number 6. And so he was like going down the list, just adding rules that she would say. And then she goes, well, Your Honor, I want to make sure that Ms. Ford is not recording the proceedings, because last time she recorded the proceedings and posted it to her YouTube page. And then he was like, Miss Ford, are you recording the proceedings? And I said, Your Honor, I have cameras in my home because defense has been targeting, harassing me, having me assaulted. I said, I'm not going to pull down the cameras in my home that's recording these events just to satisfy Perkins, which she's the individual, her law firm with Sephra Shaw, Jackson's co-counsel, are the individuals that are basically targeting, harassing me. And so he's like, well, you can, these proceedings are recorded and you can get the transcript. And he was like, I want to make sure that you don't record and post anything to the internet. And I said, I can agree to that. And so he goes, Miss Perkins, does that satisfy you? And she was like, well, yeah, I guess it does, Your Honor. And then he was like, Miss Perkins, do you have any other rules that you would like to add for Miss Ford? And so basically they were in the court together. I'm pretty sure sitting side by side, coming up with whatever they wanted to say to me. And then they would make it a rule on the court. All the evidence that I was providing, he ignored it. You're not supposed to do that. I told him that, he goes, Miss Ford, how are you feeling today? And I said, well, all last night I was being assaulted with direct energy weapons and sonic cannons, distorting my ears and my eardrums. And, they were trying to cause a heart attack to stop me from having the call today. And he's like, well, is there any medical documentation for that? I said, Your Honor, when I go to the hospital, they won't even treat minor issues. They have FBI agents following me to the hospital. They place me in the room. They have nurses and hospital workers banging on the walls. They're doing involuntary mental checks because basically defense has been trying to run with this theme to have me labeled as demented. So they have defense counsels. They have defense counsel's clients, which is DeKalb County law enforcement, authoring fraudulent police reports when they came to my home for an attempted break-in, which was Turnberry Gates Townhome Association neighbors coordinating with Chamblee Police and law enforcement. They first would come to my home, twist the doorknob. I'm walking down the steps. They would be twisting the doorknob, trying to get into the door. Then later they swat my home with police. Police will come there. They'll start twisting the back doorknob, trying to enter the home, harassing me. They show up swarm with 10, 15 cars. They sit outside for hours harassing me because I would call and I would basically not call. I would knock on the neighbor's door to tell them to stop banging on the walls and stop assaulting me with military weapons. So as soon as I would knock on their door, they would immediately call the police. And so the police would show up to my house, banging on the door like 15 minutes, 10 minutes later, banging on the doors, trying to shake the doors to get into my home. And then when they had my home broken into, attempted to break into it several times, they basically said, well, we're not gonna investigate this. And then they put on the police report demented, didn't investigate demented. So they did that there. They did that when I went to the Chamblee police station to report them harassing me with sirens. They wrote, called the police and said, well, the Maurice Gates with Linda or something like that, Officer Linda, they showed up and was like, well, we noticed her as being a mentally disturbed person that has made complaints against the police before. first of all, I've never had any contact with you. Secondly, I emailed GBI and I emailed the police department and I went and filed a police report of you guys harassing me with sirens. What do you mean you noticed me before? You've never seen me before. So, of course, they were authoring fraudulent police reports, lying in the police reports, and then on the police reports there, they would label it as demented. So then what happened was I emailed DeKalb Council, City Council member Bolton, or something Bolton, and she goes, well, if you need to consult with your guardian or consult with your like basically someone who's mentally capacitated that needs to have someone speak on their behalf. And I said, well, the only person that needs a guardian at LATAM is basically you, because you're coordinated with defense to label someone someone's mental capacity when you don't even know them. You've never had any contact with them. You never had any conversations with them. And you're basically coordinating with defense counsel. So then she's going to email me and say, oh, well, let's meet. She goes, first she goes, I can't do anything about this. And then 2 days later, she emails me and goes, well, let's have a meeting. And then she sends me the email at 9:11, or says, let's meet at, have the time at 9:11. Or no, between 9 and 11. Well, law enforcement has been harassing me with the time 9/11 because I told one of the intervener plaintiffs that I kept seeing that number. So law enforcement basically has been harassing me with that number. I purchased insurance the other day. The guy gave me a quote over the phone, and then about 2 minutes later into the call, he comes back and says, oh, well, you know, the quote, the price just changed, is now basically $911. And so I knew that was basically the FBI hacking into the call or emailing him, telling him to change the price. And so that's what he did. And so they've been harassing me for a while. The court continues to say none of this is related. Of course, it's all related. You and I both know it's all related. But this is what they're doing now. If they're doing this to me, and I'm competent, I have common sense, I have a master's degree, I've been in the financial industry for over 22 years. So if they're doing this to me, just think what they're doing to other people who don't know how to file their own motions in court, don't know how to protest when they're being violated by basically the justice system. There's no reason whatsoever the justice system should have turned an employment case into a criminal matter, but that's what they're doing. They have Fager Drinker, Beadle and Reef, the law firm, and also Sephra Shaw. They have their interns sitting in the law library, basically pulling up historical cases on which historical cases they can violate. Basically historical cases of judicial misconduct, police misconduct, harassment, cases that have the name Harris in it, the surname Harris, because they had individuals knocking on my door, coordinating with police, saying that my last name is not Ford, it is Harris. I submitted that into a motion to compel to court. The court basically denied that yesterday. They substituted Timothy P. O'Hara for James P. O'Hara from Kansas. James P. O'Hara ignored my he removed my counsel, David Kurt Jaffa. David Kurt Jaffa refused to report the retaliation to the court. He basically was like, I'm not reporting it. I said, well, give me the court's email address so I can report it, because when you became my counsel 2 years ago, you basically said that you were going to file a TPO order, or a temporary restraining order, against them for, you know, the harassment. So that's why I retained you. And now that I have you as my counsel, you refuse to do anything. You ignore me. You sit on the case. I send you an email. You take months, or you don't even respond to the email. You just ignore me. Every Friday, I receive, he was out of office because he lives in Jerusalem. So every Friday he would, you know, you send him an email, it'll send a response, he's out of office. As you can hear the sirens. So what they like to do is harass me with sirens, police. They always send public safety or police officers into the vicinity that I'm at to harass me with sirens. These are DeKalb County public safety and DeKalb County law enforcement. It doesn't matter where I'm at in the state of Georgia. It happens in Georgia. It happened in Florida when I went to go to Florida to try to get away, a break from this. It happened, it started in Colorado because that's where I lived. So they started in Colorado. They would have fire drills in the apartment building that I lived in, make people come stand outside in the cold, 3 o'clock in the morning. They have people pulling the fire alarm all hours of the day. So it started there and it's continued. And the court is trying to say none of this is related. They would have police officers pull me over, reach into my vehicle, turn the lights on after they've already opened my car door and turned the lights off. I would have events in Alabama um, at a banking institution, which the legal counsel, Sephrah Shaw, that is also their client. So they would have access to my calendars when I would be doing events. So what they would do is they would tell police officers to come to the vicinity that I'm at. As soon as I leave a public speaking event, because I was, the public speaker for a client presentation for retirement planning or Social Security planning, they would tell the police officer to pull me over. He would pull me over, reach into my vehicle and say, oh, your lights were off. Oh, let me just turn them back on. This must be a rental car. So they have access to be able to get into rental vehicles to turn the lights off, because I turned the light on automatic before I left my home. So why would it all of a sudden be turned off? And that's the type of stuff that they would do to me, just harassing me all over the place. In Alabama, on one incident, they tried to cause vehicle homicide by releasing a heavy construction boulder in front of the vehicle in front of me. It rolled down the highway and basically hit my vehicle, totaled the vehicle, and the people that did it, they took off. Police showed up. They had to take me to Enterprise Rent-A-Car to get a car rental. They have people following me, flattening the tires of my car. This is the nonsense. These are police officers. These are Department of Justice, GBI. GBI would send me an email and say, oh, the events that are happening to you, it's not illegal. So, and then the court would say, the court is saying, well, there's no constitutional, this doesn't apply to what's happening to you. These events that are happening to you doesn't apply to this case. Well, how does it? I wasn't being harassed and gang stalked by law enforcement until this case started. So, like, what are you talking about? But this is the information that they're putting out there. And then they have their legal sites saying the case is EEOC versus Ford. It's not EEOC versus Ford. It is EEOC versus Jackson National. EEOC is the plaintiff. I'm an intervener plaintiff. Jackson is the defendant. But since this case started, that's how they've been labeling the case. They'll either say EEOC versus Ford, or they'll say Ford versus Jackson National. So that's how they have all the legal sites labeling the cases. Long story short, they refuse to leave me alone. They continue to gang stalk and harass me everywhere I go, following me, harassing me, causing discord. They're using a book and they're basically picking little keywords from that book to harass me. And they know that I know this, and they continue to double down on their gang stalking. They have Turnberry Gates Townhome Association, the HOA board. They added military personnel that has direct contact to Chamblee Police Law Enforcement, which is Sephrah Shaw's client. They're coordinating with them to surveillance me nonstop in my home. They assault me with directed energy weapons, sonic cannons. The neighbors have access to the HVAC system because they premeditated the scheme. They release microscopic pests through the HVAC system that are targeting my sensory organs. The judge yesterday took very light of that while he was being very condescending on the call. And this is what they do. This is what I've been subjected to throughout this case. Now, they've paid off pretty much everyone I know so that I don't have any help. And then Heather yesterday on the call would say, oh, well, I want her to take that down because, my elderly parents, the stuff is already up there. You and your elderly parents have a newspaper post about their 40th birthday. And so I sent that to the court, and she basically told the court she wants it restricted, taken down. I posted the GoFundMe page because they had my home while they were trying to have my home attempted to have it broken into. They was harassing me with police, firefighters. After the judge ruled, they had the firefighters come into the back gate of my home harassing me with horns, sirens, of squealing their brakes. So I reported that. Well, I found a case, a $2 billion lawsuit against Excel Energy. There was a Marshall fire in Colorado. Now, the Marshall fire was very suspicious to begin with, and they said that it wasn't. Of course, they had the firefighters say that it wasn't. It was. So this happened a month or a month and a half after they were trying to break into my home with the FBI, DOJ, GBI, and law enforcement. And of course, you know, the firefighters and police are involved. Well, in Colorado, they had a Marshall fire where it burnt down the whole community. It burnt down 33 homes in the 37 homes in the community. And those homes that were burnt down happened to be Heather Teresa Carson Perkins, her brother's home with his ex-wife and their child, and then with his new wife and her children. Now, don't you think that's a coincidence that all of this was happening during the same time period they were coordinating stalking me? Now, the $2 billion lawsuit is against Excel Energy. It involves 150 insurance companies with, of course, the Carsons. Now, the judge basically combined all of those cases. So now the insurance companies and the Carsons are basically plaintiffs against Excel Energy. Well, the insurance companies that are on this case, they are insurers. See, they harass me with airplane surveillance and helicopters they send over the park to stalk me. Well, the insurance companies that are part of this lawsuit is Sefra Shaw, which is defense legal counsel. So co-counsel is Fager Drinkle with Heather, and Sefra Shaw is the legal counsel. Well, Sefra Shaw told the court that they left my case March 3rd and left defendants, Jackson National, but they didn't. They were still litigating a similar case in Ohio until I basically posted it on my Instagram page that they had deleted. And they said basically they were still litigating that case until June. Well, how did you leave the case if you were still on the case? So now those Sefra Shaw and Fago Jinko, the Carsons, basically now have a $2 billion lawsuit against Excel Energy. Now, I think that's kind of odd. Basically, you said you left July 2020, my case. And basically, you really didn't leave until June 2020, the Ohio case. And then about 2 to 3 months later, you had my home in Georgia attempted to be broken into, and a month and a half later, there was a massive fire in Colorado called the Marshall Fire, which now you guys are claiming there's a $2 billion lawsuit, and it involves the same individuals that have been harassing me, part of their family members. I think that's odd, and I think that's very suspicious. And so that's what Heather basically told the court she wants stricken from the record. It's already public record. It's already out in the public domain. That's how I found it. And so basically the court agreed with her, and they decided to basically restrict my files. So everything that I filed with the court now is going to be restricted for 2 months, he said. Basically, they're gagging me. The judge thinks this is hilarious. And he goes, Heather, is there anything else that you would want to say? She goes, well, I don't really care about, anything really about me. It's more about my family. Well, it should be concerning to the court because she had my counsel removed, stating that I posted her address. It turns out she had two primary addresses. You lived at both properties as your primary address. So what do you mean I posted your address? See, there goes another plane, them harassing me. Because they have someone over here listening to me, so they're upset that I'm talking on the phone. See, this is the same airplane. That's what they do. They send the airplane over the park to harass me. They send it over my home to harass me. They harass me nonstop 24/7. They send military helicopters over my home. They're mad that I'm not at home right now, so they can assault me with direct energy weapons. And then I'm out here talking on the phone or recording videos to upload. So this is what they're doing. But this is the nonsense that I've been dealing with. Um, So back to what I was saying, she would say, "Oh, well, she posted my address," and then my attorney said, "Oh, well, Miss Ford, that's grounds for termination." And he'd get upset with me, sending me all kind of nasty emails. And I said, "Well, I've been explaining to you that they've been harassing me, had me assaulted, driven off the road, all of this stuff, but none of that's concerning to you. But the fact that I posted her address that I found on a public domain that was already public information, it was behind no firewall." So I don't understand why everybody's so upset about me sharing information with the court. Well, the court thought that was a problem, so of course they restricted that too. So they're restricting anything that I prove defense is lying. They are restricting anything that I'm proving their coordination with defense and their clients, Jackson National. Sephrah Shaw is the legal counsel for the president. Um, President Biden actually was, while I was emailing the White House explaining to them that I'm being harassed and assaulted with direct energy weapons, he was selecting people from their law firm to add to the National Relationship Board. He's the current president's attorney for his personal and for his family, for their family businesses. So it's no surprise that he became president again because, I have my reasons. It doesn't even make sense to even go into a little rant about that on this recording right now, but I've done it on other recordings. Long story short, they've been harassing me nonstop. They refuse to leave me alone. They're stalking me. As you can see, the two individuals, they're still in the back hiding because it doesn't take that long to walk this area. They're waiting for me to walk back there, which I'm not going to walk back there. So they're back there sitting back there waiting for me because I know this path. And he would have came this other way by now, and he still hasn't come that way. So him and the other woman, they're basically sitting somewhere watching me and recording me because that's what they do. Law enforcement and the FBI has me followed everywhere that I keep reporting to you guys. This has been going on. I've reported it to the ACLU, the NAACP, whistleblower organizations. None of them refuse to help. None of them will help. They refuse to help. They'll make up a reason and say, "Oh, we can't help for this." I've asked several attorneys, over 50 to 75 law firms since this case started. It started in 2009. November 2009 is when I filed the initial complaint with the EEOC. They settled with 23 or 24 individuals in 2020. And then the judge ruled for defense, and my attorney was doing the very least he could do. And so they ruled for defense. It had to go to appeals court. He was up in appeals court getting all the facts wrong. And it was supposed to be a recorded session. And he said, everyone said it was going to be recorded. Well, the day of the event, it wasn't recorded. There was only audio available. And so this is the nonsense that I've been dealing with. It's been a hot mess. This is the 10th Circuit area, Colorado, Wyoming, Oklahoma. They put Judge Cruz, who had the conflict of interest. Biden promoted him to judge in Oklahoma. So now whoever lives in Oklahoma or have cases in Oklahoma, now you guys get to deal with his misconduct and his criminal ignoring of the cases and to whoever's paying him on the side. So that's what's going on in Colorado. And not just Colorado, because I've been emailing Congress. I've been emailing everyone. Everyone's known about this. They have spy cameras all over my home, individual spy cameras, so they're sitting there watching me on a daily basis, my responses and what I'm going to do and how I'm going to respond when they're assaulting me with directed energy weapons, or have the police outside my home shaking my doorknobs, trying to get into my home, harassing me, or stalking me at the hospital if I go to the hospital, them stalking me, have the nurses and the doctors banging on the walls. I went to go take continuing ed or retake my insurance test at the Prometric Center for Insurance, and they had the individuals inside of that center banging on the walls while I was taking the test. So this is a nonsense that I've been putting up with. This case, like I said, started in 2009. I've lived in a couple of states since then. They've harassed me state to state. Colorado has jurisdiction over this case. Of course, they've engaged in interstate commerce fraud, obstruction, harassment, gang stalking, driving me off the road in Alabama, having state troopers speed up behind me two at a time really fast, and then speed off, harassing me, tracking me based upon my coordinates, my GPS coordinates, or the low jack coordinates on any car that I'm driving. This is what I've been dealing with. So this is what's been going on. Here goes the plane again. It's basically making loops over the park where I'm at. They do the same thing over my home. See the plane right there? Now, these planes, they come from DeKalb County Airport. Peachtree, DeKalb County Airport, which is clients of defense counsel at Sephora Shaw. So they have their tenants, their clients, harassing me with airplanes, looping over my home, harassing me with aerial surveillance over the park. Normally it's military helicopters. They'll send military helicopters low over the park harassing me. So this is what I've been dealing with. Everyone's been aware of this. It's been happening for years. This is nothing new. Law enforcement's been authoring fraudulent police reports, not just against me, I'm pretty sure against other people, and lying about it. So, and the judge, the Chief Kerry Thomas, who was standing in my front yard in 2018 in full uniform with the HOA board, moving trees so they can later, a year later, start shooting my home up with pellets and harassing me. They want to make sure that they have easy access to be able to view my home, view my door when I walk outside, so they can immediately send someone outside to start stalking and harassing me. So that's what's been going on. Now they have this hawk that flies over my home, and there it goes right there. Someone actually owns it and they train it. Now, of course, they got two planes. any closer and it's on and popping. And see how they know exactly where I'm standing? He's like, I told you to be quiet. So what was that, 5 or 6 times already in the last 5 to 6 minutes? So this is what they do over my home all day long. Several planes fluttering, making loud sounds, coming from Peachtree, DeKalb County Airport, that are clients of defendants, counsel Sefra Shaw. So they stalk me nonstop with police. These are police is basically paying them to do this, to harass me. So this is what they do all day long, because they prefer me to be inside of my home so they can assault me with military grade equipment all day and night long. Now, the court is saying them stalking me with aerial surveillance and planes. They're saying that's a conspiracy theory. It's not happening. As you can see, it's definitely happening. Now, this is the nonsense that I'm dealing with. And these are grown people. These are adults, supposedly adults, in the judiciary. These are attorneys and officers, judicial officers of the court. This is what they're doing with their time. Gang stalking pro se litigants. And I'm only pro se because the EEOC basically said the case is not in the public's interest for them to litigate. So they litigated with everyone else. They wanted me to accept basically a lowballed offer that was calculated by defense counsel's damage expert, that offered me defense counsel's wife's birthday reversed. When they offered it to me, I had seen that number before, and I'm like, this number looks weird. What does this number represent? And it turns out it was defense counsel's wife's birthday. Well, the court was like, we don't want to, you cannot post any more about anybody on the case, defense counsel, their family, or anything about the judiciary or officers of the court. But I'm finding information that relates to you guys coordinating this and in your premeditation from the beginning, and now you're saying that I can't coordinate it. See, now they have this person running up there whistling with their dog. Now, the lady was doing this before she came in this area, so now they're sending the guy to run through here with his dog. And then here goes the plane again. So now they have 2 planes, like I said, 2 or 3 planes that they have stalking me. These are the same planes that they have flying over my home. Now, when I leave here, they're going to follow me back to my home, and they're going to do this over my home all day. In addition to the military helicopters that they send. Now let's go to another location, and let me show you guys how they're going to send these planes over to the next location. So, this is LaTanya Nicole Ford. I am signing off for this episode of Jackson National gang stalking and their prior employees for reporting discrimination which of course they did, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have to go through all of this harassment schemes with law enforcement and the government. But this is what they're doing. I have better things to do right now than to record them flying airplanes overhead. So let's go to another location and I'll show you guys of them following me and stalking me at that location.